All right. Abundance, 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 peace and abundance, royal risings, hope all is well. School to prison pipeline, we're gonna knock this out. We're gonna be brief and hopefully you'll share. Hopefully you see the importance in this enough to share. As usual, turn on your subscriptions, turn on your notifications, man, and hope all is well. Abundance. And I'll be right with you in a moment. All right. The school to prison pipeline refers to the systematic practices and policies that push students, especially Black youth, out of school and into the criminal justice system. It's a cycle fueled by a combination of racial bias, zero tolerance discipline, over policing in schools, and unequal access to resources. Key elements: disproportionate discipline. Black students are more likely to be suspended, expelled, or arrested at school compared to their white peers for the same behaviors. These punishments remove them from the classroom and increase the chances of falling behind academically. And a lot of people just keep sending their children to these motherfucking facilities. I don't understand. I did a show on homeschooling. There's plenty of programs out there that you can homeschool your child online. They got online courses. People getting degrees and certification online. I don't know how still people say, what they say, the school is just a daycare nowadays. You know what I mean? Zero tolerance policy. Harsh disciplinary rules, often for minor infractions, parentheses like dress code violations or talking back, and parentheses result in suspensions or expulsions. These policies often criminalize normal adolescent behavior. Police presence in schools. The rise of school resource officers, SROs, means that the behavior once handled by school staff is now met with law enforcement intervention, leading to arrests, court referrals, and records. I don't understand how people still sending their children to these shits, especially the hood school, what they call more black schools or hood high schools or whatever. I mean, you talking about pipeline, you talking about nigga, they went from school security to getting the actual police in the motherfucker. So if it's not more blatant, it's they say not only we gonna watch them while they in the neighborhood, we gonna watch them while they at school, while they in the neighborhood, while they going to school. Implicit bias and stereotyping, not judging but stereotyping. Teachers and administrators may subconsciously interpret the behavior of Black students as more aggressive or threatening. This can lead to harsher punishment and lower expectations. Underfunded schools and lack of support. Many schools serving prominently Black communities are underfunded and lack counselors, social workers, and mental health resources. further contributing to punitive rather than supportive responses. Long-term consequences. Students pushed out of school are more likely to drop out, get involved with the juvenile justice system, and face ongoing challenges in employment, housing, and higher education. Why it matters. The school to pipeline the school to prison pipeline didn't start from a single event. It developed over time through a mix of historical and political. Oh, hold on. Okay, fine. Why it matters. The school to prison pipeline deepens racial inequality and limits opportunities for Black youth. Reform efforts focus on increasing restorative practices, reducing police in schools, addressing bias, and investing in student support. The school to prison pipeline didn't start from a single event. It developed over time through a mix of historical and political social factors, especially during the late 20th century. Here's a breakdown. Historical roots of racial inequality. After the end of the legal segregation, Brown versus Board of Education, 1954, many schools serving Black students remained underfunded and neglected due to residential segregation and systematic racism. Even as schools were quote-unquote desegregated, new reforms of educational inequality persisted, laying the groundwork for unequal treatment. Tough on crime era, 1980s to 1990. The rise of quote-unquote war on drugs and tough on crime policies during the Reagan and Clinton administrations heavily influenced schools. Policies aimed at punishing crime in communities made their way into schools, leading to zero tolerance policies, automatic punishment for even minor infractions like tardiness or dress code violations. They just gonna get them for anything. It don't matter, you know. Zero tolerance policy. These policies become widespread after the Gun-Free School Act in 1994, which required schools to expel students for bringing weapons. Though intended for safety, zero tolerance policies were applied broadly to nonviolent behavior and disproportionately affected Black students. Increased police in schools. After incidents like Columbine shooting 1999, I thought it was right for many schools increased security by hiring school resource officers, SORs. These officers began arresting students for issues once handled by school staff, introducing young people, especially Black youth, to criminal justice system at an early age. That means the staff is already handling it and they just stepping in regardless anyway. You know what I mean? Because they have a hidden agenda. Disparities in school. Disparities in school discipline. Black students were and still are punished more harshly than their white peers for the same behaviors. Implicit bias. That's why I say it's a difference between people say don't judge. It's a difference between bias, stereotyping, and stigmatizing. We have to know the differences in these words. Judge means to make a decision or decide something. See what I'm saying? We make judgment calls and judgment all the time. You know what I'm saying? So implicit bias and stereotyping, you know what I mean? That's what a lot of people really mean when people say don't judge me. They really mean don't stereotype me. That's what they really mean. Anyway, stereotyping and lack of cultural competence among educators have led to over policing and over disciplining Black youth, divesting from education, especially in Black communities. Schools in predominantly Black neighborhoods are often underfunded, with fewer counselors, social workers, and mental health resources. Instead of investing in support systems, schools began relying more on discipline and policing, feeding into the pipeline. Summary: the school to prison pipeline emerged from decades of racial inequality, punitive policy shifts, and the criminalization of youth behavior, particularly in Black communities. It reflects how broader societal issues like racism, poverty, and mass incarceration have shaped school systems. The school to prison pipeline has a particularly harmful impact on Black youth males who are disproportionately targeted by disciplinary and policing practices in schools. Here's an overview. 1. Disproportionate discipline. Young youth Carbon Black males are suspended and expelled at much higher rates than any other group, often for subjective offenses like defiance or disrespect, quote unquote. This leads to frequent missed classroom time, making it harder to keep up academically. Early criminalization. Young youth Carbon Black males are more likely to be seen as older, more dangerous, and less innocent than their peers, a phenomenon called adultification bias. Adultification bias. Make sure you look that up. We got to do a show on that one. Hold on. We got to write that down. That's an interesting one right there. As a result, they're more likely to face arrest or referral to juvenile court for minor school incidents. Academic disengagement, constant punishment, and negative labeling lead many young youth Carbon Black males to feel unwelcome or undervalued in school. Over time, this can result in low motivation, dropping out, or reduced self-esteem. So think about the trickle-down effects now. Limited access to support. Young youth Black males or Carbon males often attend under-resourced schools with few counselors, mentors, or mental health professionals. Instead of receiving support, they're more likely to be punished for behaviors linked to trauma, poverty, or learning differences. School push out and long-term impact. So if the home is chaotic and then they going into a environment like some of these schools, man, then we wonder what's wrong with them. The constant cycle of discipline and Exclusion increases the likelihood that young youth black males or copper tone males will be pushed out of school altogether. This leads to the greater risk of incarceration, unemployment, and poverty in adulthood, continuing the cycle of systematic inequality. Stereotyping and bias. Society often labels young youth copper tone or black males or young youth males as aggressive, dangerous, or unteachable, and these labels are reinforced in school settings. That's why we did a show on homeschooling. Such bias influences how teachers, administrators, and police treat them, regardless of their actual behavior or intent. Summary: the school to prison pipeline stripes many young youth copper tone black males or copper tone males of their educational and or knowledge opportunities, and instead sets them up for a path towards the criminal justice system. It reinforces negative stereotypes, widens racial disparities, and limits their potential and limits their full potential. Oh, give me a second, y'all. All right, the school to prison pipeline also deeply affects young youth black girls through their experiences are often overlooked, while young youth copper tone black males are more likely to be disciplined overall. Young youth black girls face unique and damaging forms of punishment rooted in both racism and sexism, what scholars call misogyny, MISOGYNOIR. That's cool. We're gonna do a show on that too. We'll do some studying and then do a show on that. And then we'll know the correct pronunciation by the time we do the show. Okay. Parentheses, the intersection of anti-black racism and misogyny. Right. In parentheses. Disproportionate discipline. Young youth black girls or copper tone girls are often suspended at higher rates than other groups of girls, often for subjective offenses like quote-unquote attitude, defiance, or quote-unquote being loud. Their natural expressions of emotion or frustration are frequently seen as aggressive or disrespectful. Adultification bias. Like young youth copper tone black males, young youth black girls are often viewed as more mature and less innocent than their white peers. This leads to harsher punishment for behaviors that would be seen as normal, forgivable in other students. Policing of appearance and behavior. Young youth black girls or copper tone girls are disproportionately punished for dress code violations, hairstyles, and mannerisms tied to black culture or indigenous or whatever have you culture. School environments often penalize them for not conforming to white or Eurocentric middle class norms of femininity and quote-unquote appropriate behavior. Neglect of trauma. Many young youth black girls or copper tone girls often face trauma, abuse, or neglect. However, schools often respond to their distress with punishment rather than support. Instead of receiving counseling or protection, they are criminalized for coping behaviors like skipping school, fighting, or acting out. Over policing and criminalization. When police are involved in school, young youth Black girls are more likely to be arrested or physically restrained, especially when they speak out or resist authority. These encounters can result in juvenile justice involvement or non-criminal behavior. Barriers to education and or knowledge. Frequent suspensions, expulsions, and school push-out prevent young youth Black girls or Coppertone girls from accessing equal educational and knowledge opportunities. This affects their long-term outcomes, including graduation rates, access to college, and equal or economic security. Summary: school-to-prison pipeline affects young youth Black girls, Coppertone girls by criminalizing their identities, punishing them for trauma, and denying them the support they need. Their experiences reflect a dangerous mix of racial and gender bias that forces many out of school and into cycles of disadvantage. Yes, there are solutions to dismantling the school-to-prison pipeline, especially for young youth, for Black youth. These solutions focus on shifting from punitive discipline to supportive, equitable, and restorative approaches in educational knowledge. Here's an overview. Restorative justice practices focus on repairing harm instead of punishing students. Encourages open dialogue, accountability, and community build. Helps reduce suspensions and conflicts while keeping students engaged in school. Culturally responsive educational and or knowledge, curriculum and teaching practices that affirm students' cultural identities and experiences. Build stronger relationships between students and teachers, reducing bias and misunderstanding or overstanding. Reducing police presence in schools. Advocates for removing school resource officers, SROs, and replacing them with counselors, social workers, and mental health professionals, and holistic and spiritual, all that good stuff, great stuff. Emphasizes decriminalizing student behavior and handling issues within the school community. Implicit bias and anti-racism training requires educators and administrators to understand their own biases, and how they impact discipline. Help shift mindsets and promote more equitable treatment of young youth Black students or Coppertone students. More supportive services in schools, hiring more counselors, social workers, and trauma-informed staff, and support students instead of punishing them. Create safer, more supportive school environments. Policy reform, repealing zero-tolerance policies that lead to automatic suspensions or expulsions. Advocating for state and federal policies that promote equity in school discipline and data transparency. Community and family engagement, partnering with parents, local organizations, and students to co-create solutions that meet their specific needs. Empowering communities to hold schools accountable and advocate for change. Summary: solutions to the school pipeline exist and are already being implemented in some districts. They focus on healing, equity, and support, not punishment. Ending the pipeline means reimagining education and or knowledge in a way that values and uplifts all students, especially those most harmed by current systems. All right, y'all. This has been an excellent show. I hope you enjoyed it. Whenever you catch this, please share it. Please donate to the channel. We have more shows coming. We have more interviews coming, more content coming, more great content coming. Make sure you subscribe, turn on the notifications. Make sure you share. And guess what? Cosmic Night.